If you were to ask me a year ago if I would be writing, directing, and editing a 45-minute documentary on the coffee culture in America, I'd probably say no. But the funny thing about a year ago is that it's not today. And the good thing about today is that I am writing, directing, and editing a 45-minute documentary on the coffee culture in America. It's funny how that works out, isn't it? Now, when you're creating such content like this, the main thing you've got to do is advertise for it. Get it out there. Make sure people see what you're creating. And in Hollywood and television, what they do is they often cut trailers. So when Bart asked me to cut a trailer, I said, of course, no problem. This is what we do. And normally, that wouldn't be an issue. But the thing is I'd never cut a trailer before. But there is a first time for everything, and so in today's video, I'm going to break down how I cut this trailer and how it got global attention from brands like NPR, Yahoo, Sprudge, and even Fast Company. Oh, hey, what's up? My name is Andrew. You can call me Pooch. I'd like to welcome you to the Less Lonely channel. I'm really glad you're here. It's a little over-extracted. You know, you've already got the vision to go. Well,
yeah.
What was the driving emotion that led you guys?
Well, we didn't have a vision to go. Like, initially, it was like, we'll never go to Africa. I'm an African American. I'm like, I'll never be able to go back to Africa. There's too much money. Who can afford that? Tell me why we raised like $10,000 in 24 hours. And then people, less than 24 hours. And then people were like, do you guys need more money? And I was like, Ethiopian coffee is a gateway drug. The coffee plant was stolen from Africa in 1616 by two Dutch spies. 3 years later, the first stolen bodies landed in Jamestown, Virginia.
Who's your name? You got it, Rose? You got it.
So I didn't set out to be the first black female roaster in Memphis. I didn't set out to do that. Our biggest thing was we want to empower the black community and let them know coffee's yours. Don't be afraid to ask questions. You have a right to ask that. In fact, you have first rights to ask that, you know. It is amazing to be a part of inspiring the next generation of black women roasters doing what they naturally were born to do, basically.
We in the motherland, fam. I've been trying to hold it in because I was like, I didn't know if we was going to make it through the gate, but God is good, you know what I mean? Favor ain't fair, we here, you know what I mean? Like, yeesh.
He's saying he's so happy to see a black person, asking you to encourage African Americans to come. He said, you're my brother.
For them to say like, thank you for coming. Like one brother said, "Wetabi hirakota," which means like come back to your country. He was like, come back and tell other African Americans to come back. Like it just made everything we're doing in coffee. Like it showed us like we were doing this for a reason. This is a part of a bigger story that's bigger than us. Yo.
So talking about coffee black back to Africa.
Yeah, Coffee Black to Africa. Is that the name of the documentary? I don't know. Like it just was kind of a bar, so we ran with it.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to break down this trailer, I've got to talk about story arcs. And you see, if you're interested in writing or filmmaking or simply watching TV, story arcs are the glue that keeps it all together. And honestly, you're probably familiar with a 3-act story structure: beginning, middle, end. Setup, climax, resolution. Now, I actually break everything down in 5-act story structure. It's essentially the same thing, but it does help me get a little bit more finite in the acts and kind of break everything down so I can get more detailed. Let me explain. So, traditional 3-act story structure looks like this. You've got your beginning point, you've got your climax, and you've got your resolution. Now 5-act, on the other hand, is the same model, but it helps you break it down a little bit more easily. You start with Act 1, exposition. It's the setup. It is giving the viewer information that they need that is necessary to wrap their minds around the story as a whole. From here you go to Act 2, which is your rising action. These are the things that are leading us to the climax. This can be an incident, this can be a call to action. Either way, this is the thing that incites either our main character or the story to move forward within itself. From here you're going up until you finally reach the climax. This is usually a pivotal moment for a character or for your story. And in this moment, all of this has led our character or our story to this. And now they have but one option. The following action is simply the response to the climax. How do we respond? What do we do? What are our new outcomes? But every good story needs a good conclusion. After the response is, how did we live? Do we live happily ever after? Did we live with more tension, which leads us to another story? This is why I do 5-act story structure. For everything that I'm creating, it has to fall within these parameters. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Was that helpful? So what is the point of all of this? It's that in order to capture people's attention, in order to communicate to them clearly through a trailer, you've got to incorporate act structure. You see, story is the most powerful tool in the creative's toolkit that you could ever utilize. So for this documentary, for this trailer that I was putting together, I knew I had to incorporate my 5-act story structure in a condensed 2.5 minute trailer. Essentially what I did is I took my grander themes, my larger story from the actual 45-minute documentary, took the key moments, brought them into the trailer, and tried to reveal the story of the documentary without actually revealing too much. So how does this all apply to the doc? Well, for acts 1 through 3, I actually went ahead and fit them into like the first 48 seconds of the trailer. Go ahead and look back. I set up the exposition, which is essentially that they had no vision to go on a story. I set up Act 2, or the call to action, by explaining that, hey, they did actually end up raising money, there was a need to go. And I even hit on Act 3 by just simply putting them in Africa. Africa is the climax of this story, which you will find out when you watch the full doc. From here, we fell right into Act 4, the team responding to the events of going to Africa. What were they thinking and feeling? How did they respond? And then what are they going to do next? And I will say that Act 5 is definitely different in the trailer than it is the actual doc. I kind of wanted to leave it open-ended to keep people intrigued. So this resolution was simply, this is bigger than us. But I didn't explain why it was bigger. You see, the whole thing is like, you don't want to give it all away, correct? And this is, again, the idea to get people to actually watch the documentary. Oh man, like there's just so many elements in the 2.5 minute trailer. Come on. So after all that hard work, after all those elements, it took off. It was able to get featured in all of those publications I shared earlier, and also got us funding, support, and hype for the overall documentary. I'd say it was a huge success. Like, it is definitely a win, and it was super dope making it. This right here though, if I leave you with anything today, it's this. Work on story. When you're creating stuff, when you're making things, think through story, think through the acts, think through how they make sense, and think through how you can bring people through a journey and keep them engaged. I think it's also important to note one other thing, is that I didn't have a team with me. I did this on my own. I was building this story out of nothing. Essentially what happened is the crew went to go shoot this documentary, but they didn't have a story in mind. They just knew to go out there and capture content. So I was given the task of, here are hours and hours of footage. What story do you see? And I say all that to let you know that you can do this. You can build a story out of almost anything. If you have visual elements, you have a creative idea, and you understand story, you've got this. I know you do. And that's gonna do it for today. Thank y'all for being here. If you wanna feel less lonely on your creative journey, then I'd recommend leaving a like, dropping a comment, and ultimately subscribing so we can be creative together and feel less lonely. Y'all, I've had so much coffee today. Can you tell the energy's out? I'm feeling it. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one. Peace. There is a first time for everything, and so in today's video I'm gonna break down how I cut this trailer. Oh, let me go again.